Welcome back. This week we're going to tie a very basic beginner style nymph, but it's one that even the most advanced anglers fish with today. It'll catch fish anywhere, hands down. It's great at imitating mayflies. It doubles as a caddis in certain situations, but we're going to tie just the bare bones version of a pheasant tail nymph. We're not going to incorporate the legs or anything. We're going to do this with a bead head today. You can do it with or without the bead head. You can add flash to it. You can dress it up all different ways you want, but we're just going to tie the very basic bead head pheasant tail nymph. Like I said, minus the legs, so we're not going to fold the wing case over and everything like that. Probably this pattern, you could draw the parallels to the common day Perdigon style nymphs that you see out there that are so popular. This one, it's a little bulkier than that. A lot of those use just either a violet body or some of them just a thread body, honestly, and then a little bit of dubbing up front, and that's basically your fly. But that's designed that way. They're designed that way and they're fished that way to cut through the water faster. You know, as you go adding the legs and you get more realistic on the flies, the more stuff that's hanging off of your fly, the more water it catches, the lower the sink rate, so on and so forth. I think a lot of that is driven by the Euro nymphing game. You know, here in the States we can drop shot, we can use whatever, we can add lead to our stuff. So it's gonna sink even your more decked out patterns, you know, with some more fluff to them to give that more natural representation. But this is, well, you could draw a parallel to this being the start of that style. Obviously this thing's been around for years, but just changing a couple materials up and going even thinner in profile led us to the Perdigon. I don't know for sure that that's what it is. That's my opinion on it. I think that's where it kind of came from, was off of this original design. But we're going to go ahead and tie this one. Like I said, very much a beginner pattern, something that if you're getting somebody started into tying, you can definitely learn a lot off of this pattern. It's a very quick one to tie. You're not going to go through a lot of materials, really. It's three materials that you'll tie in, and you're done with it. But it will catch fish with the best of them. It really will. So 7/64 bead on a size 14 curved caddis hook, and then we've got some 15 thousandths lead wire that I'm just putting on there. I made probably a half a dozen wraps with a little bit of zap right on top of it, and then I'm going to cram that lead up into our opening on the bead head, and that's just going to keep that bead from wiggling. It'll secure it a little bit more than just trying to get your other materials to hold that in place. So as always with my curved caddis, scud hooks, whatever, draw a parallel line from the point of the eye straight back. That's where I'm leaving off with my thread, and that's where I'm going to start with my material. So on a size 14, I'm going to go somewhere in the realm, or somewhere in the range of 4 to 6 strands on the pheasant tail. So then I'm going to stand those strands straight out, pull them off, and then that way you can see your tips right there are nice and even. If you just pull them straight off of the stem there, they're going to wind up being a little bit uneven for you. So do it this way and it'll keep them nice and consistent. So I'm going to tie this on a little bit shorter for the tail than the overall length of my hook, and then I'm going to tie that in. You can see there's the tail section right there. That's probably a little bit longer than what you'll see the modern day stuff tied. You'll see the Perdigons and all of those with really short tails. I still tie mine this way. I pretty much always have had my pheasant tails this length. And if you bump it up to a natural, it's going to be closer than what the modern stuff is. But really, I mean, if fish are, you know, eyeing up flies and looking at the length of the tails, you know, we're all in trouble. It's a personal preference. It really is. However you want to tie them. If you want to go shorter on the tails, great. If not, like I said, I don't think it's going to turn off many fish at all. So next up on this is I'm just going to take a little piece of small copper wire and I'm going to tie that in. If you want to, you can go extra small on this if you don't want a really pronounced rib section. It's entirely up to you how you want to go about that, but I'm just going to tie this in small and take that right back. And I actually want to trim that off. I'm going to use a new piece for that. I'm going to trim that off. If you want to, you can keep that on there and then just wrap it from there. But sometimes it's a little bit tough depending on how far forward you get with your thread wraps. You want to make sure that your tail's nice and secure, but if you get too far forward, sometimes you have to go back at an angle and then wrap over it, and it can create a little bump right there. So I'm just going to tie in some new pieces here, and I'm going to tie those in from the tips. Just kind of dust those ends up a little bit. Tying this in from the tips, I'm going to work my way back to the tie-in section, or right where I have my tail, and then I'm just going to make wraps right in front of one another. Creating a nice slender body with the slightest amount of taper to it, because as we go forward we're getting thicker on the feathers for that pheasant tail, and it's going to add a little bit of a taper. I mean, very minimal, but it does add a little bit of a taper to the fly. So then we're going to tie that off, leaving about 1/8 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch between the body and the bead head. That's going to be for our thorax. And then we're going to take and counter wrap this. I'm going to go in the opposite direction that I wrapped the pheasant tail. And I'm trying to keep my hands out of there as best I can so I'm not blocking the fly too much. I don't know how well I did on the pheasant tail. But then I'm just going to take that all the way up to the front and then tie that off like so. So you have nice even spacing on your pheasant tail fibers, or on your copper wire. Nice even spacing. And then the last thing that we're going to do on this fly is we're going to take 3 strands of peacock curl, and then same as before, or same as any time when you're tying with the peacock curl, take this stuff. Don't use these tips. They're going to bust on you. There's a good chance that they're going to break and they'll unravel. So we're just going to take these 3 strands. We're going to take a little bit off of the top, and then we're going to tie in right here and then go right back to where we left off with our body. And then we're going to take our thread up to our bead and then just nice wraps, one right in front of the next, all the way up to our bead head. And then we can take and tie that off. Spin that around, trim this. Everything's set there. And then we'll give this a quick whip finish. want, you can throw a little bit of glue on that. I typically don't. As you can see, it takes very little time to tie one of these, and if one unravels on me, I go to the next one. I don't really get too worked up about having one fall apart on me. But like I said, if you want to glue it, you can. It gives you a little bit more security, but I don't really feel that it's necessary on this. Like I said at the very beginning, very simple pattern, very much a beginner pattern. Sorry about trying to get the words out, and sometimes it's just my mind doesn't run as fast as what my mouth does, or vice versa. But like I was saying, very much a beginner pattern as far as from a fly tire standpoint, but also very much a pattern that even your most experienced anglers are still gonna fish. I mean, it catches fish no matter where you're at. I got a guy at work, been fishing his entire life. One of the only nymphs that he will throw right there and just catches a pile of fish. That's pretty much it. What's the need to get real fancy when this is going to do the same thing for you? You know, as a fly tyer, it's fun to experiment and then also add more realistic, more realistic attributes to the fly to match the naturals. But that's us as fly tyers, not necessarily as fishermen or what the fish are looking for. But that's enough of that. I made this video much longer than it should have been by sitting here BSing. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't fished these before, or like I said, if you're getting somebody into tying, this is a great pattern to get them to start tying. One, it's a very easy pattern to tie. Two, there's very limited materials involved in it. And three, it's gonna flat out catch fish for you. So, questions or comments, leave them with me. I'll get back to you. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll catch you next Wednesday.